Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is WPGN, and playing with Hand of Algalon, and I'm going to show you a few things about something known as rotation downtime. A lot of people think it's just a matter of hitting the buttons you need to when they sparkle on your bar, and that for the most part is true. You always want to hit your procs depending on what your buffs are, or as soon as they're available depending on what your class and spec call for. However, there is such a thing as rotation cooldown. And when I say that, what I'm referring to is the amount of time it takes you to move from one skill in your rotation to the next. Now obviously you're going to have the 1 second CD because of the global cooldown, or your cast time depending on how long it takes to cast your spell. Those are constants. The only thing that you can do to affect those is obviously gain more haste. Haste lowers the GCD, and it also lowers spell cast times. But rotation cooldown is, here I'll demonstrate, I'll cast Wrath at this target here. So you have your cast time, spell goes off. Now as soon as that spell has gone off, the GCD and the cast time are already finished. So that leaves you, that means that it's time to cast another spell. Now if I were to, and this is nothing against people who like to point and click, that's fine, but there are ways to bind your keys to make it a little faster for you to hit your keys. Now if I switch to, I can't switch to that camera, but so you have a reach of, here, I'll angle that down, or I'll just, there we go. Let's move this guy over a little bit. So your hand here has a reach of your WASD, ZXC, QE, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. You also get your tab, caps lock, shift, control, alt, spacebar. That's all within your reach of one hand. Now since you have your other hand on the mouse over here, you don't want to have to take your hand off of the mouse just to hit key 9, key 0, things of that nature. So I'll move the camera back over there. Now if I have skills that I have on shift keys, or have alt 1, alt 2, alt 3, shift 1, shift 2, shift 3, shift 4, that kind of thing, I can 1, 3, or I can shift 1, shift 2, 1, shift 1, 1, shift 2, 2, 3, shift 1, and I never have to move my hand further than it needs to be in relation to where all of the keys that I am using are. That is probably the best solution for people that do not own a mouse like this. This has all the number keys that go along the top of my keyboard bound to the side of the mouse here. So I can run my rotation and never have to move either of my hands. So all of my dots, like Moonfire, Sunfire, now this one here, Stellar Flare, I have on 4 just because it's easier for me to reach. But we're going to start a rotation, say on a boss. I hit my pot, which is, and I'll sacrifice a potion for this. And just so you guys can see, accurate numbers will buff as well. I don't know if you can even see the damage meter, but it doesn't really matter. So we've got our food buff, we've got our flask buff, we're down to 4 seconds on the pull timer. I can just hit shift with my left hand and pre-pot. Then I hit shift 9. Then I start my rotation. 1, 2, bang, bang. All my dots are up now, and I can continue my rotation as normal without ever having to take my hands away from where the keys are within comfort range for pressing. And because I have the keys on the side of my mouse, I can just switch over to that hand when I need to re-up those dots. and I have no time between skill presses or action buttons. Because they're all within reach and they're so close, I can hit them immediately instead of having to direct my camera with the mouse or movement and reach, say, down along the key line to press. Now, this isn't saying, that people that click and play are bad people. No, that's not the case. I'm simply offering a efficient way to do it. There's still going to be things that you have to click and press. I still click and press this guy Barkskin just because it's at a weird number and I didn't really have anywhere else to put it. So most of the time I just slide down and click it. If I need a rebirth, I obviously click that as well, and then I just click on the player frame. Okay, so I'm going to do this one more time just to show the difference in speed. So I would first at 4 seconds shift and then pre-pop, which is 0, and then I would shift and then 9 for celestial alignment, and then I would start my rotation with a couple of wraths followed by a star surge, and then I would get my dots rolling. So I'm going to do this for just a moment here so you can see the difference of how much time there is between skill presses. Now don't take that number to be accurate because I'm breaking and explaining this as well. So how much DPS I'm doing right now doesn't matter. This is simply to help people be more efficient with their skill sets and their rotation. Now I got that burst of haste, things are moving a little faster. There we go. Now all these buttons that you see showing up on my screen here that look like big buttons or big versions of my skills, these are actually tracking on top here, these tracking buffs that I have on my player, and the bottom ones that you saw show up like these are tracking my dot and how much time is left on it on the target. That is an add-on called Tell Me When. It's very customizable, it's very easy to use, it's really accurate. You can change it in many ways to track many different things. It's really helpful. So I'd recommend that to anyone who runs with bleeds, dots, empowerments, procs, that kind of thing, because it will tell you, if you set it up correctly, when you need to do that, how much time you have left on certain buffs, how much stacks you have left on certain buffs, how many seconds you have left on a dot, when and you get a better idea of when you need to refresh them, because it's big, it's right in your face, and it's easy to see. So now I will only use the number keys 1, 2, 3, and 4, and I will reach to click anything beyond that, and we will see how different the time between my casts are. So say we've reached over, we've clicked our pot, we've clicked our celestial alignment, which really isn't that big of a deal because the pull hasn't happened yet. You still have 4 seconds remaining, and then you start your rotation. So we will do the same rotation with clicking rather than hotkeys. So we start off with our couple of wraths. There we go, and then we need to click that, and then we need to click that, and then we need to click this, and then we need to click that, and we can still key press 1, 2, 3, and 4. So then we need to come back and click that, and then click that, and we'll have to re-up that. There we go, and we go back to our numbered keys. See, the ones you can reach are never the problem. It's the ones that are farther away that start giving you the trouble. And a lot of it also is more dependent on muscle memory. Do you remember what numbers your keys are on? See, there's a little bit of hang time. Now, that's not terrible, but it is enough to make a difference. But really, the question is, do you remember what keys your spells are on? And if you had to do it where you couldn't see your action bar and you only had your number keys on your keyboard to go off of, could you? Could you do it blind? Could you do it without having to search for the key on your screen? And that is one thing that I've constantly aspired to get to, because I don't want to have to constantly look at my action bar and go, okay, all right, Star Surge is up, I need to cast Star Surge. All right, none of my dots are up, okay, I need to cast my dots again. You know, I want to be able to just, you know, say, okay, we'll hide the UI, all right? We'll Alt-Z and we'll hide the UI. That gets rid of everything on my screen. I don't get my timers. I don't get any of that. Now, is this going to start now? Okay. All right. So my entire UI is hidden. I have no access to my clickies over here. I don't have my dot timers. I don't have any of that. Now, the elements such as the damage meter will still run, and will unhide the UI afterwards to see if I was still in the same neighborhood, and I'll keep the same pace to do a good comparison. Alright, so rate is starting, we pre-pot, we alignment, right off the bat, we get 2 of these guys in, start our rotation. And we'll see how close I am without having any of those tools available to me. Alright, so let's stop. I actually did more without the UI than I did with the UI. And my dots are just now starting to fall off. My stacks are just now starting to fall off since I stopped combat. So the question you should be asking yourself is, can you do it blindfolded? Do you remember what numbers your skills are on? If so, you shouldn't have to look at the skill bar, and you shouldn't have to look at your keyboard. You shouldn't, you know, your fingers should know where those keys are, what you have them bound to, and that will eliminate a lot of the guesswork in having to search for your skills on your bar, because you already know what they are. You know, as long as your fingers can remember where those keys are on the keyboard, and you have a mental, you know, you have a good mental clock on how long it takes your dots to tick down. Like, if I were to just simply cast Moonfire, Sunfire, and we go for the 4th one, I know that Moonfire and Sunfire in the first cast have roughly 18 seconds between them. So I know that, you know, okay, in about roughly 15 skill presses, I'm going to have to re-up. But then I mentally keep track of the fact that, okay, you know, say we're casting spells, you know, we're running our rotation this entire time. Then it starts counting down, so now, okay, we re-up our dots, right? Alright, so now I know that they almost have double the amount of time because we recast them while they were still on the target. So now, you know, I have 30 seconds on Moonfire and about 23 on Sunfire. But if you count to the lowest dot timer you have, they will never run out. So that's something to keep in mind, and if you can do that mentally and you can keep that in your head, then you don't need to look at your screen. You don't need to look at your, you know, you wouldn't need Tell Me When. You don't need to see your action bars, because your fingers already know where they are, and you know what abilities you have on which, you know, on which keys. And you can bind things to 2 keys. If we go into key bindings here, and we go to action bar, you'll see that Special Action 4 is bound to Control F4, Control F5, Control F6. You know, we go to multi-action bar, I've got Shift 1, Shift 2, all the way up to 10. And then I have even plus and minus to cover the 2 keys past key 0. So you can bind to multiple different keys. So if it's easier for you to have, you know, say you have your Star Surge on, 4. If it's easier to Wrath and then shift 4, then that's what you do. Whatever makes it easier and quicker for you to get your casts off. You want to get your spells off as soon as the other spell ends. So you'll notice that when I cast, I have this little red area at the end of my cast bar here. If we just keep casting, now that little red area is your... I don't think the standard UI gives it to you, but if you have a UI add-on like the one I'm using, it's called LUI, and during your cast bar, it will give you that little red space, and that little red space is the time at which you can queue another spell to be cast. So I'm going to Star Surge right now, and it automatically goes off. And then, since it's a 1-second CD on the global cooldown, you can automatically assume that, once you've let your finger off of the key, the GCD is up and you'll be ready for your next spell. So let's try that. We'll do a Star Surge. Okay, so there we go. And then we tossed a Moonfire in right after it. Another helpful thing when you're dealing with dots and you have to refresh dots is always put your dot, if it is an instant cast like Moonfire or Sunfire, at the end of a spell. So say we'll use Lunar Strike because it takes fucking forever to cast. So Lunar Strike is, I think it's like it's a 1 second. No, it's almost a 2-second cast. Okay, so we have our 2-second cast. So Lunar Strike. Okay, say. No, I'll put it up there. Okay, so Moonfire's counting down. You're running your rotation. And you get down to about 6 seconds of Moonfire, and you've got a Lunar Strike that's in the middle of the cast. You want to attach another Moonfire right to the end of it. So we'll do that, and boom. Your Lunar Strike and your Moonfire hit at the same time, eliminating, the waiting for the spell to be done and then pressing it. You lose a couple of seconds there. Plus, you get your dot re-upped, and you don't have to worry about it, and you can automatically move on with your next skill in the rotation. So to demonstrate a little better, I'll just use Wrath because it's quick, it's easy, I don't have to wait for it. So we'll just cast Wrath until our dots start running out, and then I will attach a refresh onto the end of one of them, or both. There's one. And then every time that you have an instant cast, you should always try to attach it to the end of something. See, there's a Star Surge on the end of the Lunar Strike. We'll do it again. Boom. Negates the GCD, and you just keep going. This is all in an attempt to help make you more efficient. Getting a mouse with the numbers on the side of it, if that's easier for you. You can get cheaper ones. I think this one that I bought, I think this was $30. It was a package deal. It came with the keyboard. The keyboard was shit, but the mouse is great. It's by Smart Tech, I believe. UTech Smart. It's a Venus MMO gaming mouse. It's just a cheapo. It comes with a really cool little desktop app. You can change all the lights, all that kind of shit. It comes with a weight system in the bottom of it. It's a great deal. I've had it for a long time. It's still working. Some of the paint's rubbing off, and it's a little dusty. It's a little dirty, but it's a great mouse. It works. It's cheap. You don't need to go out and buy a Razer Naga that's $70, $80, $90, $100. This little cheapo $30 mouse will do you just fine. The keyboard that I'm using, that my wife bought for me, is a Blackweb macro keyboard. It is not mechanical, but it has held up just fine. I'm wearing the paint off of the keys, and it's still going. It hasn't shorted. I have full use of all my control, shift, space, jump, number keys, all that kind of stuff. So you don't need high tech. You don't need high tech shit to do this. It's all about remembering where your keys are on your bar. It's all about being able to reach your keys and your skills in time without having too much time elapse between skill use. It has nothing to do with whether you own a gaming mouse or a gaming keyboard or all this fancy shit or not. You can literally do it. So there are keyboards that are cheaper than this. You can do it with a $10 on keyboard from Walmart. You could do it with a $9 mouse, you know, and then if you don't have the buttons on the side of the mouse, okay, so I'm going to do it with the keyboard. All right, so we got this, and we just boom. Wait. Okay. Oh, I'm not even alted in. There. Okay, so we do that. So 0, and then 9, and then we just start a rotation. And you can do it without having to have all of this fancy stuff. I'm not touching my mouse. I don't have my hand on it. I'm just doing the same thing with my left hand because all of the keys are in reach. Because I've bound them to Shift, 6, Shift, 9, Shift, 0. So, you know, take a minute to think about it. You don't need a fancy setup. You can do it for cheap. You know, just to kind of improve things. And I implore you, you know, test yourself with your UI turned off. Make your memory as to where your keys and skills are better. That way you don't have to look for them. So the more time you spend looking at your skill bar, you're not paying attention to the raid. If, you know, say you're on Vexiona and she's in her air phase and you're looking for this skill because you need to, you know, you need to run across a platform, so you got to switch into cat. By the time you find it, she's already laid that patch down and you're already dead. Time is of the essence in boss fights. This doesn't really count much for dungeons. I mean, obviously, sure, it helps your performance overall, but it's mainly for raid bosses. You know, so you are performing as optimally as you can, providing that you are doing everything that your class requires that you do. Rotations, essences, enchants, whatever that may be. So hopefully this helps some people and helps them understand. Another thing that you can look up, and I don't have the command on hand to do it, but if you are finding that, now I've experienced this a couple of times, that when you hit a key and your cast gets to the end of the bar and you go to hit another spell, there is kind of a lag time, like it stutters. There is a console command that you can enter, and let me find out what it is for you. Cast timer, console command, wow. And I had stumbled across this actually just last week or so. And it has to do with how long the cast queue is for your spells. Now, by default, this value is set at 400, and it responds to milliseconds. So 400 milliseconds you figure is an average of, what, 5 seconds, roughly? Okay, so it's qualified under input lag. But let me find the video. There it is. Okay, this is the video for it. And I will see if she's actually got it listed in the thing. You know what? I'll just attach her video as well to the bottom of it. That way you can watch it, and it will help you understand how the cast queue works. With a cast queue of 400. The game is waiting, you know, much longer than it actually needs to queue up your spells. I currently have mine set to 220. The default is 400, but if you experience that input lag where, you know, you cast and then you can't immediately cast your next spell because it stutters, that is an input lag issue with the spell queue, and doing this and shortening it, you know, to your locking will help. So I'll include that link in the bottom of the video. I hope this helps some people out. Thank you, and I will see you again in another video.